Hi there, and welcome to Sylvia and Peter talking about mental health. This is about giving you a 10-minute break so that you can listen to topics that involve the issues surrounding mental health, mental ill health. My name is Peter Abrahamsen. I am a psychologist and a coach, and Sylvia is also a therapist and a coach. We both have long careers behind us in different ways in industry, and on top of that, we've always been interested in people and how they thrive or why they don't thrive. So we have both independently of each other gone solo, and we are now working full time on improving mental health where we can in business and for individuals. So the topic we're going to deal with today is, why don't people talk? We hear so much about it's important to talk, it's good to talk. Let's talk about mental health. Talk, 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 talk. But so many people do not talk, and just wonder, why is that happening and what is the problem of people not talking? So Sylvia, what do you think is the main reason why people choose not to talk?
Where do we start? um, I think from my talking from my own experience and working with others, I think fear is one of the main reasons why people don't talk. The fear of all sorts of things, the fear and the shame of it, the fear of not being good enough, being helpless, fear in all sorts of ways. Fear of not being able to cope, fear of feeling a failure, fear of weakness, all those things around fear. I think for me that taps into stigma and fear, very, very similar. I think for my own personal experiences, once I actually finally realised I did need help, it was, who do I talk to? Because it is a very private matter. We bang on about, time to talk, let's talk, but it's still a very private matter. And when you're sharing some very intimate details when you want to get well, it's a tough one. For me, it was mind reading. Would someone be strong enough to listen to what I had to say? Would they listen?
Mm-hmm.
Would they hear what they want to hear and disregard the rest? Would they put in the details? Would they sit behind it and put their personal meaning to it? Oh, by that she means this, and by that she means that. Interpretation of what I was saying. Would they not listen properly? Judgment. Would they judge me for what I'm going to tell them? All sorts of reasons, and it is a privacy thing. And also, another thing, I didn't have the words. I didn't have the words
Right.
to express how bad I was feeling. It was more than a bad day. Words like, I'm feeling really miserable, isolated, alone, a failure, weak, can't manage. They don't express the depth of that feeling. It's more than a bad day. So how to express, how to articulate how bad I'm feeling. And the platitudes that often come, everyone feels like you from time to time. No, they don't, because you haven't listened
Exactly.
to what I've been saying. There's so many things about that, but I think a lot of it is fear. It's really the wraps it all up. Fear of some things.
Fear is a big thing, and the fears you have mentioned are very personal to you as an individual, about what is my therapist going to be like. The fears I have come across are more about what will people think about me? Will I be ostracized at work? Will my friends laugh at me? Will my partner walk away from me? Will my kids lose all respect in me? All those issues are bound and deep rooted in fear. And also, you said you do not have the words. One of the things we hear a lot is, "Oh, I know exactly how you feel." That's what people tell you when they try to be supportive. And
they're not in here.
It's a number one no. You do not know how another people feels, because you're not that other person. It is just impossible. But you can have empathy. You can say things like, "I understand you're going through a hard time," or "It must be difficult. Tell me more about it." And then people will start telling. It is an awful lot to do about trust, isn't it? Do I trust the person I can talk to? Do I trust that people around me won't ridicule me or somehow put me in a corner and forget about me because of their fear of dealing with me? And do I trust myself to talk? And also, if I talk to this therapist, what else is he or she going to uncover? Are they now going to dig up things that I don't want to talk about? So there's an awful lot of fear and myths that we have to dispel, because you and I are a lot about the doing, not just the talking. But if you can't bring yourself to talk, then what do you do?
You see about again, I think a lot of it for me was the fear of failure, which I think does apply to many, many people. I believed I was a failure. So for me, not coping or not manage was further proof to me that I was a failure. So I was stuck in this loop. But you talk about trust. It's trusting that the other person won't back away or shy away from what we have to say. And I think that's a huge issue. And also, as you say, trusting in myself, which was one of the key issues that I had amongst it all, was that trust in myself. Is that once I start to talk, what else is there? For example, I knew I was very angry about certain things, that I'd suppressed that for many years. But do I start to talk about that? Because that's very scary, how big it is.
Yes.
So once I start, am I be able to stop? What am I going to uncover? And in trusting that you're talking to someone that can manage that can go with you on that journey, that can be with you. And once you start to talk, the worst thing is, I'll just back up for a moment. A couple of times I started to talk to friends of mine and they say, Sylvia, you're all right. And I go, well, actually, and you can feel and go, whoa.
Yes.
Withdrawing.
They don't know how to handle it.
So you give up talking. So then when you go to see a therapist or counsellor, are they going to do the same? You'd like to think not, because that's what they're trained to do. But there is still that fear.
There is.
In there.
Another thing I think why people don't talk is also the lack of self-awareness. They don't know that there is a need to talk, because they've got so used to being themselves, their own anxious, their usual negative selves, those who just don't blend in, or those who stay away, or we get used to our own behaviors and think that's normal. Because we have our blind spots. Everybody does, and often it is not until our surroundings, friends, family, colleagues, drop a hint that, do you think you need to talk to somebody? And when you get that message, the world is falling apart. Because talking to someone, it's okay to say, well, go see your doctor. Talk to your doctor about your bad knee, whatever it is. That's okay. But when someone says, I think you need professional help or someone to talk to, the world has come to an end, because now it's serious. When actually you are just talking to another human being, someone who has learned how to listen, someone who is interested in your story and interested in you getting better. So it's not scary. But the first time you approach that thought of actually opening up to a total stranger, it is scary.
Weirdly, sometimes it's easier to talk to a total stranger than it is to someone that you know. You touched on relationships earlier. A lot of people say, how's this going to change my relationship? Because change creates change. As I started on this journey, I'm a very different person now to I was then. So if I start to change, what's the ripple effect on other people? How are people going to see me differently? How are people going to respond to that? But also, picking up on your point, it became my way of being, to be sullen, miserable, irritable, argumentative sometimes. And it was, that's just how Sylvia is. And you don't realise actually things could be a lot better, because you don't realise you've got nothing to benchmark it against. When you're a kid, you don't talk about it to people. How do you know that you're having a bad day? And how do you know when it's a sign of something more? To your point, it's about raising our awareness to what our okay position is. Am I okay today? Am I not? What do I do about it? 2-3 weeks, or perhaps I should do something about this.
We talk so much about our comfort zone and fear of the unknown. And that is why people also do not talk, because they don't know what's coming. They don't know what will happen if they start talking. That's why people stay in coercive relationships, in violent relationships, because they know what they've got. They don't know if they can cope outside of that environment. So we stay in situations very often that are not helpful or prevent us from thriving, simply because we are afraid of what will happen if. So it takes a lot of bravery to say to yourself, I'm now taking responsibility for my life, because that is what you have to do, and say, I don't want this anymore. There has to be a different way. I'm going to explore, and I'm going to talk to someone about what's going on in my head, and then just dump it in some therapist's lap and put all the pieces together again.
I think for me, and again, I'm speaking for myself, but I think this may resonate with many people. It's a very tough place to get to when you realize, actually, I do need help. But I think for me, the even tougher thing is, okay, now I recognize I need help. Where do I go? Who do I talk to?
Yes.
I went to my GP because I didn't have anywhere to go. I'd gone to my different GP many, many years ago. And he told me, well, if you had children, Sylvia, you'd actually feel so much better. That's not really the response that I was looking for. So you struggle on. But when I recognised, for the latter times, I was almost like forced to go to the GP because I tried to take my own life. Went to the GP the next day. I'm such a failure, I can't even do that. Can you help me to live? And she was amazing. And she asked me all these questions. But it's about, how do you explain that to someone? And she listened. And it's weird. How do we sense when someone's truly listening and when they're not? But they signposted me, and and it does take a hell of a lot of courage. But I think the next one is, where do I talk to? Who do I talk to?
Yes.
And I think that's key to finding that person that you gel with, that you're comfortable sharing those things with. It's not always easy at the start. It's a little bit of, tippy toe in the water. Do they deal with that? How do they deal with that? Yeah. How do they deal with that? And you start to build that trust and rapport.
You make a very good point there. How do you know who to talk to? How do you know it's the right person? Which is why I always recommend that people have a first conversation with me. It's totally free of charge. There is no obligation to hire me. And the purpose, which I reiterate so many times, is it is for you to feel comfortable talking to me. And if you don't do that, don't work with me, because you have to be absolutely sure and comfortable that I am someone that you are happy to talk to. Sometimes people just talk because it's not in a professional setting. So the hairdressers, the bartenders, and the taxi drivers, they get to hear a lot because they're not in the profession. So they're safe to talk to. And people don't think about confidentiality or anything. They just talk. But when it comes to the professionals, they worry about confidentiality and the non-judgmental approach. So we are different in terms of when we think we need to talk, if we know that we need to talk, and who we then choose to talk to. It's counterintuitive very often, because why would you just lay everything bare at the hairdressers or the barbers when you wouldn't talk to a psychologist? Well, it's that fear of what are the consequences of talking. And there are no consequences. You have your hairdo, you walk out again, and it's forgotten. But someone taking notes, someone saying, can we meet again next week? Suddenly it begins to become a process where you are part, and you have to follow through with it. And you don't know what's at the other end of it.
It's interesting point you made there about what's popped up for me there is the difference between offloading, when we offload to the hairdresser, the beautician, the taxi driver, the person at the bus stop, and then the difference between talking in a therapeutic, counselling, coaching, developmental, recovery, recuperative way. Where's that balance? Where's that tipping point? And I think, again, that will be down to the individual.
I think in general, the more aware people are that mental health issues are not the end of the world, it's something that can be dealt with, that most people have mental health issues. There are a lot of people in this world who have never experienced it. That's also possible. We shouldn't go and think that everyone suffers from something,
exactly.
because that is so not the case.
Yeah.
But let's be more aware of when we need to talk, why we need to talk, and who we can talk to. And that probably fills up a cup of coffee. Mine is almost gone, and the 10 minutes that we promised people.
Exactly.
So thank you very much.
People some things to think about. Are they okay?
So, yeah.
I need to talk, offload.
And if you can't figure out who to talk to, then that's your starting point. Work out what options are there, who are out there that you can talk to, and then check them out.
Yeah, and people do listen.
Yeah, they will.
People do really listen.
They do. So thank you very much, all of you, for listening to us.
Yeah,
and for staying with us for the duration. And we shall be back with more topics on mental health and mental health issues. So thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.
Yeah,
Bye for now.
See you later. Bye.